What is up, and welcome back everyone to the last ever episode of preparing my Forester for the Vancouver trip. Today we're going to be wrapping up. We're going to be doing a new modification as we've got all our maintenance out of the way and it's time to have a little bit of fun. Today we're going to actually put into use a space that I've talked about for a little bit here. Not up here, but down here. So we are going to be working on the wheel well because, well, when you have a spare tire that is about 25% smaller than your tires you have in your car, it's pretty useless. So I will need to do an external spare tire eventually on the back of the Forester. That is kind of the plan. But it leaves me with this big open space down here. So let's talk about what we're going to do with it. So as you guys know, space is critical on a build like this where they're not a big truck. It's not like a Tacoma or a 4Runner that has a lot more space. Our space is very limited in the Subaru Foresters because they're a smaller, older SUV, or according to my insurance, station wagon. But essentially, as I said, space is very critical. So you want to use all the space efficiently as possible while keeping your weight down. So what I thought about is using this space for a couple different things. Because, well, it's a fairly large space and you can do a couple cool things. But my idea is to utilize this to hold potable water. Because that's one of the things when you're overlanding or when you're exploring and you're out of the area for a long time, or you're out where you can't get water for a long time, you want to be able to carry a substantial amount of water, because water is, besides food, and shelter, is one of the most critical things to survival. So what we're going to be doing today is going to be moving, or changing, not moving, we're going to be changing this to water storage in my Subaru Forester. And how we're going to do that is, I thought about this a long time. You guys can let me know if you think this is the best idea or I should have done it a different way. But what I thought of is we're going to be using a potable water bladder. So because it's kind of a funky shape in here, we have to kind of adapt and overcome. So we're using a flexible water bladder that we can kind of drop in to exactly like that and do a couple little modifications I'll show you. And then we'll be able to run our water from this bladder. Obviously it's going to be heavy, so I'm not going to fill it all the way, but run it all the way up to where we'll have a little way to dispense water. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking of, utilizing my wheel well or my spare tire well in a more effective manner for overlanding. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this solution. As I said, I've played around with it a lot. I'm trying to figure out what would be the most effective way to do this, because it is a weird shape. There's like some donut weird ones, but the donut ones don't really fit in there. They're more for under the car and they're really flat and they don't have a lot of water. You could play around with getting a custom circle bladder made, or you could try out one of these. These are actually made for RVs and boats, but hey, we're doing similar things, so why not? So let's talk about how we're going to do this. So with the bladder in the car, we have a couple challenges to overcome. Well, first is making sure that we're able to carry the water. As I said, that's why I chose the flexible bag, because it can fit in kind of any weird shapes. With that being said, we do have to be aware there's a couple sharp things kind of on the back of this. It's going to be hard for you to see back down here that we're going to, it's not super sharp, but I just want to play it safe. So I'm going to wrap some black tape or even some coolant plugs. I'm going to just plug or put them over the hole so we don't shear the bag when it's in there. I'm also going to be putting a little bit of a padding layer, just a nice soft blanket between the steel and the bladder itself, to make sure that we're able to kind of not have it shake around and kind of give it a little bit of sliding room, because we don't want friction to wear through the bag either. The second one is, well, our water's in here. How are we going to get it out when we have our kitchen? As you guys know, we have a kitchen that's going to make an appearance in this video a little bit later, but it sits right here and it sits above that. Well, that challenge is solved by this guy. So we're going to be just using a little electric water faucet, and it will pump water. So I'll show you exactly the lines, but it will pump water all the way through here, around up here, and then I'm going to have to probably drill a hole right by that faucet, and we're actually going to run it to the faucet on my Overland kitchen and have pretty much a running tap water in our car, which is awesome. And well, the last challenge is from Subaru itself. They didn't intend you to have not a spare wheel in here, so this thing is super flexible. If I push it in too hard, it falls down. That is where our third solution comes in. So originally it just rests on here, and then it rests on here. That is not enough when you're supporting an Overland kitchen. So what I did is I went ahead and made that. So this is a really basic, literally piece of wood with a spacer on this side and a spacer on this side that is going to go on those two ledges and support this so that we are able to put as much weight as we need to on here and it'll still be supported. I am going to go ahead and screw it in here, so I'll show you that in a second to make sure that it doesn't move, but that's how we're going to be able to hold water. So first things first, let's prep this for being able to put the bladder in and being able to not worry about it spilling water all over the back of our car. So I'm going to go ahead, clean up this because, well, it's a little bit dusty, and then I'm going to do my little bit of protection on the sides. Thankfully, it's not as rusty as the STI, which is great. The STI's got some rust in here, but I guess if we're going to full race car, we don't need really to worry about that. But anyways, what we'll do is we'll go ahead, there's a couple little points I want to watch for. I'm going to cover those up and clean this out and then put the blanket on and show you exactly what I'm thinking. And well, after cleaning it out, I have a plan of attack. So obviously it's clean now. I'm going to be using that towel, but my issue is if it's going to be sitting there, the towel's going to move around and eventually shift. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be, well, screwing the towel into the foam. So I got these big thick screws with these big washers. I'll also use these washers to hook up to the D-rings on the water bladder itself, so everything kind of stays there. Obviously you can put a ton of load on foam with these in them, but this will give us enough that allows us to essentially just keep everything in place. And then if we take a look at the back of the vehicle where some of the screws protrude through, I just took some vacuum emissions line plugs and just kind of stuck them on the pokies part, so they've got a nice little rubber cap to them. So anything that was poking out, I kind of just capped them like that. So theoretically, what I'm going to do now is hopefully screw in the towel and screw in the bladder and see how that hole holds up. So it should be just like that. So there we go, we have it in. As I said, I'm using the screws as more of a place to hold it rather than actually like support it, because once you start filling it with water, it's gonna pull those screws out there just in foam, right? So it's essentially just make sure it's all in the same place and essentially just keep it from really shifting a lot when it's not completely full, because when it's completely full, it's gonna be held pretty well in the well itself because the well's got a natural kind of curve to it. But that's kind of what we're looking at for the bladder and the kind of support for it. I don't know what to call it. Besides, it's just the towel. The towel, it's kind of screwed in there. So now we can talk about putting our mount on. Not the mount, sorry. I mean the support for the back little cover there. So all it is a 1x2 that I then took another one, stacked it, and then sanded it down until it fit perfectly under each section there. So it fits perfectly there. So when I put it on, it's flush. And then when it sits here, it is perfectly flush. So I'm going to make sure these are kind of lined up. So I'm kind of on the edge of each of these like points here, and same as in here. It's kind of hard to do with the camera, but there we go. And then I'm just going to take one longer screw, send it through right there, and one longer screw and send it through right there, so that this thing won't move around when we are driving. And well, there we go. That is actually in there pretty well. I use really long bolts in that foam, so it probably gripped up a little bit more. It lifts the foam when I lift it. So we are on a good track to keep everything kind of aligned. And just so you guys can see that there, it's kind of sitting in the pocket there, nice and squared up. Well, kind of squared up. So that we have now to be able to talk through how we're going to get water from here to, well, this corner. And well, as I was just showing you, we happen to have a nice little pass through right through here, and it goes right into this corner here. And that's where we're gonna run our potable water line. So this is actually just RV hose pretty much. You wanna make sure it's potable. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out hose, and then I went to a place that actually just carries proper hose, and imagine that, they had the right stuff. So it'll run that way. It's a 3/4 inch line, so it's a thick one. And then what we have is we're going to have this ball valve in the corner over here so that we can turn the water supply on and off. And also we'll have our adapter to go to a 6mm silicone line to our water pump. But this also allows us to be able to undo the silicone line, obviously when the ball valve's off. And what we could do is theoretically fill up at any potable water place by hooking a hose into here, turning it on, and letting it fill the bladder. Obviously you want to be careful with overfilling, but this is a good solution to be able to fill on the go when you're in the middle of nowhere. So that is kind of my idea with the ball valve, is just going to be able to get it to work here and line up the hose. So I'm gonna cut some line, do some hose clamps, and get this all lined up. And well, there we go. We have our line down here at the connection. As you can see, I black taped the hose clamp because I don't want any sharp objects in there. You might also notice that there's some water in there because, well, I had to fill it a little bit with water to see how the bag would react. So we've got probably, I'd say, 40 US gallons in here, and it's not even close to being full. So yeah, we can fit a lot of water in here. Obviously, that will be dependent on how long I'm staying in the backcountry, because don't carry more weight than you need to. That's kind of not a good thing when you're overlanding. But then we have the hose run here, and then it just runs up into this ball valve that I showed you guys. And the ball valve goes through the hole in the floor. I have simply zip tied it to the wall. I just put 2 holes in here and then zip tied it to here so that I can turn it on and off really easy. And then after the ball valve, it just runs to our 6mm adapter where we'll run the 6mm hose to our cabinet, which with this all done, we can go ahead and do a little bit of ranging. And well, there we go. We have put our camp kitchen back in. If you want to see how we made this, go check out the episode. But this is our camp kitchen for our Subaru Forester. And well, it needs water, obviously. So what we're going to be doing is adding water. As I said, this is the faucet we'll be using, a little battery-powered faucet. It's going to go right here with the help of some magnets and some plates. These are little steel plates that are used for your phone. And well, they're magnetic. So what we're going to do is essentially put one of these plates in here and build a little magnetic mount for here. So mount the magnets in here. I think what I'm going to do is get a little bit of a plastic plate going on here and then put the magnets inside and then glue those to the plastic plate. And then that all will hold on to the bottom of this. And then that will allow us to be magnetic wherever. And then I'm just going to drill a hole for our 6mm silicone line and then cut the silicone line so that it connects to our ball valve down there. And then it will be a functional sink. So first things first, let's make this magnetic. And well, this is a plan. I'm essentially drilled a hole in here. I want to make sure I don't crease it too much. It's a little bit creased, but obviously it's not going to be that much flow. Like, it's not going to be crazy amount. So I think we should be fine. I'll obviously test it before I totally close it up. And then this is the plate we'll be using. This actually sits in there without super glue, but I'll probably super glue it on there. The magnet's off-centered because I want to clear the hose as much as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drop it in kind of like that, and then we can kind of snap it together because it's got a little lip on here it'll snap onto, and then eventually I will super glue it because what will happen is it will just pull off when I pull it off. But for now, we'll go ahead, try this, and see how this works. And after waiting too long for epoxy to clear, there we go. So as you can see, we got a cap on that. The magnet, as I said, is on the inside, and we've got our water intake essentially. So what I did is I hid one of those little metal plates just on here. It's got 3M, so I just pulled the 3M off, stuck it onto the wood below my giant cutting board here, and then what we can do is go and we gotta tap for our sink. And obviously, like as I said, it's not going to be perfect. You can't ride like that, but that's definitely enough to, if you bump it, it's not going to fall over, it will stay, and you can turn it on and off. And then once you're done, take it off. And then I hid another magnet in here. I hid the whole magnet in here because I wanted to stay when we're moving. This rug is pretty thick, so I'm not 100% sure if it will stay, but we'll see, because it kind of wobbles around, but it kind of seems to stick there if you get it in the right spot. So we have our faucet for our water that is now under that, so we got one last thing to plumb up this silicone line. And after cutting the silicone hose, which you can see is now running inside the car to our ball valve on the corner there, we have a faucet. And you know we had to test it, so we're gonna go ahead, hit the button. There we go. Water is being pumped out of the bottom of my Forester into my sink. That is pretty awesome. And well, there we go. We have finished the last mod on the Forester before we head to the coast, which means your next video will be the first episode in doing that. So I have a few things I gotta figure out how to pack these racks a little bit more and obviously pack some of my stuff, but those aren't gonna be videos because you'll see it throughout the series, and I'll also be doing a walkthrough later on this summer of my Forester, because it has changed since I did the building my Forester in 10 minutes video. So I definitely want to show you kind of an overview of what we have. But this is awesome. This was kind of the last kind of step I wanted to do. I have one other thing I want to do right here. Then I would call this like the second phase of the Forester. The first stage was doing all the kind of like exterior modifications. I'm going to call this the second stage, the comfort stage, getting everything set up for some overlanding and making sure that it's more sustainable for longer times and it's comfortable. So yeah, there we go. We are ready to go hit the road and check out the coast. But I hope this guy helped you a little bit, especially if you're trying to figure out how to do something like this. Because as I said, there is a few different options, but no one's really done it before. So hopefully this helps you guys out and gives you some ideas of exactly what you want to do. If you have any questions, you know the drill. Let me know down below. But that is going to be it for today. So as always, peace out and stay humble.